Everyone, I'm a startup where I grow microgreens by vertical farming technology. Just a second, let me just check this. Yeah, all right. So I'm audible, right? Okay. Okay. So join with us in Telegram. So for homework and class notes, you can join the channel Vani Kari ICSE class 9 and 10. Okay. So Telegram channel, Unacademy, ICSE and ISC both. So this channel link you will find in the description box. Okay. So you can go to the description box and find the link and join the channel. And also we conduct free classes or special classes on Unacademy, so where you can have a live real-time interaction using the chat and the emojis. Also you can ask questions using the question tab. So there is a live poll option, so basically we can conduct a quiz there as well. So once the conduction of a quiz is done, so we will be sharing the leaderboard so that you can know your rank and you can compete with your friends. Okay, so now this is a plus subscription feature. So the main advantage with respect to this is that you can learn live from the comfort of your home. Okay, so unlimited access to all the courses. So different educators will come up with different courses, so you will have access to all these courses. Then top educators of India are going to take the class in one platform, that is Unacademy platform. Then there is regular doubt clearing session. So after about every 3 sessions, the 4th session will be your doubt clearing session. So any doubts you have related to the topics that are previously covered, so you can clear your doubts in this session. Okay, so then complete coverage of a syllabus is done, mentorship and guidance is given, study material is given, practice tests are given, live test series, batch courses. So if you prefer to learn in Hindi, so you can go with the Hindi batch. So if you prefer to learn in English, so you can go with the English batch as well. So with this you will also have daily practice session, weekly mock test series, live quizzes, daily MCQ and subjective test series as well. Okay, so Unacademy plus subscription. So if you are planning to take a subscription, so you can go with the referral code VANIYT, where you will get 10% discount on the subscription with this referral code. Okay, and let's say now we are in class 9, so you can go for for completion of class 9 itself, you can go for 12 months. So if you are planning to complete your class 9 and 12, so you can go with more months of subscription as well. Okay, so now here you are going for, let's say you are planning to complete class 10, so if you are going for this one, so basically if you are taking 12 months and above subscription, so 1 month extra free you will be getting. So in general, total of 13 months subscription you are getting with 10% discount on the referral code VANIYT. Okay, so then let's get started with this one. Okay, so there is a structure of a bacteria, or in general we will study about the bacteria today. Okay, so yes, am I audible? So let me just check once. All right. Okay, so bacteria, a general study. So what does the bacteria have, or what does, how does it look like, what is the shape, what is the structure? So now bacteria are most primitive unicellular organisms. So now here we mention about the bacteria. Okay, so bacteria is basically a unicellular organism. Hi Piyush, my next session is day after tomorrow for class 9. So it will be day after tomorrow at same timing 6:30 on health organizations. Okay. So bacteria is a primitive organism, or what we call as a prokaryotic. Okay, so meaning is that the prokaryotic meaning, so pro is basically with respect to primitive. Okay, so this is a primitive type of organism. Karyotic is nucleus. So what is the meaning of this one? So here let's have a look at the nucleus of this bacteria. So if there is any nucleus or the genetic material which is present, so how exactly this is present. So now this is a bacterial cell. Okay, Day after tomorrow my bio exam and this chapter isn't coming. Okay, so which chapter you are having? So this is you are in class 9, right? So whole syllabus is there for class 9, Piyush. So you are just starting your class 9. So now here in this case, so nucleus, so basically there is no nucleus over here, so that is why we call it as a primitive type of nucleus. That means, you know, genetic material is present randomly. So let's say this is a genetic material which is there. Okay, so this genetic material, or which we call as a DNA, so DNA is the naked DNA without any covering. So there is no nuclear membrane covering this structure. So this is present just like that in the cytoplasm itself. So that we call as a primitive type of a nucleus, and the space where this genetic material is present, so that space can be called as a nucleoid. Okay, so this is a prokaryotic organism. So please post more videos for class 10, as most class 9 students are done with their exams. Would be delighted if you could please revise sense organs again. Yes, I'll do that. Okay. So anyway, for class 10, tomorrow's session I have already kept, you know, the diagram based questions on excretory organ. So next one I'll keep it on a sense organ. All right. So we will, so a sense organ you want me to revise, you know, both ear and eye in one session itself. Yeah. What is this? ज़रूरी थोड़ी है कि पूरा बुक से आए, बोर्ड थोड़ी कंडक्ट करता है. Okay, so anyway, but you are having your exams nearby, right? So since your class 9 exams are also nearby, or some of you have already finished your exams also. For class 9s, we will be starting classes from 16th of March, that is from the starting. For anyway, now we are just, you know, conducting a revision like, or, you know, MCQ type questions we are discussing. All right. So now this is a primitive type unicellular. So, you know, most of the bacteria what we find, so they are all unicellular. Okay. So complete, like, you know, they'll be completely unicellular, but we can find them in chain. We can find them in clusters. So let's have a look at like what exactly. So if they are present in chain, what do we call them? If they are present in clusters, what do we call them? So different shapes are there. So what is the name of those different shapes which are given? So let's have a look at that as well. Okay. So now each bacterial cell contains a single chromosome, that is a nuclear material which is not enclosed in a nuclear membrane. Okay. So that means there is no nuclear membrane covering, and that space where this genetic material or a DNA is present, so that we call as a nucleoid. Okay. So now bacteria, they are so numerous and they are everywhere. Okay. So now we can find them in the air, water, soil, foodstuff. So if we keep a old food, okay, so for a longer time period, so we can see a bacterial growth in them. So we can see a fungal growth also in certain cases if a moisture is available. Okay. So now with respect to that, so they are present everywhere. So in our own body, so there are hundreds or thousands of bacteria in mouth and on skin. So now, you know, if we are in general, if we are talking about, so billions and trillions of microorganisms that we get exposed to each and every day. So you know, on a daily basis, so there are a lot of WBCs which are formed in our body. Okay. So they keep on fighting. So whenever a pathogen entry is there or germ entry is there, so these pathogens are basically fought by a WBC which is there. Okay. So that means we are getting exposed to a lot of germs or pathogens on a daily basis. So now with respect to that, so some bacteria occurring in our intestine are beneficial. So there is a harmful bacteria also. Okay. The one which cause diseases. Then there are, you know, beneficial. So importance of the bacteria which are of importance. So those useful bacteria are also present. Okay. So now there is a vitamin B synthesis. Then, you know, for curdling of a milk. So in that case again the role of a bacteria is present. Okay, so certain bacteria are highly injurious, which can cause diseases, but there are others which are highly beneficial as well. So we can find both harmful and a useful bacteria. So what exactly is the size of this one now? So bacteria are smallest. Okay, so that means the smallest living organism. So that is how, you know, the bacteria was earlier. So this was a very small organism. So later on, so this was actually a prokaryotic type. So now we can find different types, right? So basically, you know, as the evolution occurred, so first the prokaryotic type of a organism was there, and now the eukaryotic type. So what exactly is eukaryotic? That means, you know, this according to one theory which suggests, so these bacteria started engulfing other type of organisms. So because of that, you know, there was a generation of the eukaryotic also started. Okay, so that is basically a theory of evolution says about this one. So basically evolution, in evolution you will come across many of the theories. Okay, so they say about this one. All right, so now bacteria are the smallest living organisms on earth. Okay, so with an average of 2 micrometers. So 2 micrometer is the average length of this one. So this is with respect to long, so 2 micrometer long, and then 0.5 micrometer thickness. So this will be a very, you know, it is minute. So this is now micrometer, means it is basically 10 power minus 6 we can say. Okay, so 1 micrometer is equals to 1000 of a millimeter. So let's have a look at the shape. Okay, so what all different shapes are there? So let's have a look at this one now. So let's talk about the bacteria. Okay, so bacteria shape, so there is, let's say, a spherical one. Okay, so spherical bacteria, which can also be called as a round shaped. Okay, so now in that, so shape of the bacteria is, you know, it will be round. Okay, and the term for this one is coccus. Okay, so coccus we call it. So what exactly is coccus here? So that means a spherical bacteria. So now this coccus is singular term. Okay, now if many are there, okay, so if many are there, so then we can also call it as a cocci. Okay, so cocci is a plural term. So now let's have a look at this one itself. Okay, so now this spherical bacteria, which is a coccus, okay, so single if it is present, so we call it as a coccus. So let's say there are two of these present together. Okay, so they are two of them are present as such. So now we call it as a diplococci. Okay, so diplococci is more than one cell is a present, so two of them are present, so it is a plural, so diplococci can be called. Okay, so same way, if a bacteria, okay, so if this is forming a chain, so now this is a spherical bacteria which is forming a chain as such. Okay, so now this is forming a chain as such, and this chain structure, so this is actually the strepto. Okay, so strepto is for chain, so streptococci we can call it. Okay, so that means it is forming a long chain, so it is unicellular itself, but it is not present individually or alone, so it is forming a long chain. So that means many of them are joined together. It's like, you know, friends are going together, so in that case, so all of them will go to mall, or, you know, all of them can cause a disease. So now this unicellular bacteria, so it doesn't want to stay alone, so in that case it will form a long chain, so that is a streptococci. Okay, so now in another case, so this same bacteria, if it is forming a cluster as such. Okay, so now it will start forming a cluster, so instead of forming diplo or strepto, so now this is forming a cluster. Okay, so in that case we can call it as a, you can see this one, a staphylococci. Okay, so what exactly is that? So staphylococci means a cluster formation of a bacteria we can find. Okay, so now this is a cluster. So let me just write this one. So this is a chain formation, this one is a cluster formation. So cluster formation of a bacteria is a, so now the bacteria are 2 in number, so it is a diplococci. Okay, so this is for a spherical bacteria. So now if we are saying the bacteria is rod shaped, so let me just write it here itself. So if the bacteria is rod shaped, so then we call it as a bacillus. Okay, so this is now a rod shaped bacteria. Okay, so this rod shaped bacteria which can be called as a bacillus. Okay, so this is a bacillus, and this one is actually the singular term. All right, so if only one bacteria is there, so we call it as a bacillus. If many are there, okay, so that can be bacilli. Okay, so bacilli, so this is for a plural. Okay, so same way, if we have the comma shaped bacteria or spherical, spiral one, so let's say the bacteria is spiral. So let me just make this one so that you can understand the shape of this one. So spiral is there. So if a spiral bacteria is present, so it is somewhat like this. Okay, or it can be like this also. So this is a spiral bacteria. So if the bacteria is spiral, so that we call as a spirilla or a spirillum. Okay, so this is a spirillum, or in case of singular plural, so spirilla also can be mentioned. Okay, so same way vibrio is present, that means a comma shaped bacteria is present. Yes, are you all understanding? Any doubt in this? So if a comma shaped bacteria is present, okay, so let me just draw this one. So there is a comma shaped bacteria, so that can be called as a vibrio. Okay, so there is a vibrio shape as well. So let me just make it as such. So this is a comma shaped bacteria now. So in this case, this is called as a vibrio. So example, that the vibrio cholerae which is there. Okay, so that is actually the one which causes the disease cholera, where you can find a dysentery or vomiting condition. So that is caused by this vibrio shape, that is comma shaped bacteria itself. Okay, so these are the structures. So cocci is spherical bacteria, bacilli is rod shaped bacteria, spirilla is spiral or twisted bacteria, vibrio is comma shaped bacteria. So now many bacteria live single. Okay, so they can live single, but some will always they can occur in pair, so that is called as a diplococci. So some can even occur in long chain. So if they are forming a long chain, so that it can be a streptococci, or they can form a cluster as well, so that is a staphylococci. Okay, so this, if they are depending on that, so in your exams also they'll ask, so if it is forming a chain, long chain, so what is it called? So you need to answer this one as a strepto. Okay, so same can happen with respect to bacillus also. So they can ask you rod shaped bacteria is there, okay, and it is forming a long chain, then you can say that it is a streptobacilli. So if they are saying that a clustered rod shaped bacteria is there, so you can mention it as a staphylobacilli. Okay, so based on that you can add this strepto term, staphylo term to different shapes of a bacteria which are present. Okay, so now this is the structure. So coccus is present, so you can see this one is a streptococcus, staphylococcus, and here the diplobacilli you can find. Okay, so then this one is a bacillus, so here it is forming a cluster as such, a long chain. So this is a streptobacilli, staphylobacilli. Now spirilla is present, spirillum, spirilla. Vibrio is present, so this is much more magnified over here, so you can see the structure clearly. So this is a comma shaped bacteria which can cause a vibrio cholerae. Okay, moving on to the next one. All right, So now here in this case, nutrition. Okay, so most bacteria have no chlorophyll. So there is no chlorophyll in most of the bacteria. Therefore, they depend on ready-made food. That means heterotrophic organisms. So most of them, what we find, so they are heterotrophic in nature. That means they cannot prepare their own food as they do not have a chlorophyll. So they depend on others for food. Okay, so they depends on other organisms. Okay, so that is mainly for the food. Okay, so that is a heterotrophic organism. So now here in that case, so there is a saprophytic and then there is a parasitic. So let's have a look at this one. So heterotrophs, when we mention, so this is a nutrition. Okay, so what type of a nutrition that a bacteria takes. So now here in this case, so bacterial nutrition is mainly, so heterotrophic. When we mention the organism is a heterotrophic, that means it can be saprophytic also. Okay, and also it can be saprophytic, and the other one is parasitic. So this can be parasitic as well. So what exactly is saprophytic here? So the organism which basically takes the nourishment from dead and decaying organisms. Okay, so now you know the bacteria itself we are talking about. So now the bacteria takes the nourishment. Okay, so this bacteria is taking a nourishment from the dead and decaying organism. So that is a saprophytic bacteria. Okay, so let me just say about this one. So there is, let's say there is a dead branch. So this is a dead plant. Okay, so let's say this one is a dead plant. Okay, so now what will happen? So there is a bacteria which is present on this one. So there is a bacteria which is sitting on over here. Oh, so it can be just one or it can be in clusters also. So there is a group of a bacteria only, we'll say. Okay, so now this bacteria, it will start releasing enzymes. Okay, so this will start releasing enzymes, and once the enzyme formation occurs, so it will form a absorbable solution. Okay, so that means you know, in order to take the nourishment from this dead plant, so it will make a absorbable solution, that is by releasing the enzymes. Okay, so here the enzyme release will be done. So after the enzyme release is done, absorbable solution is done, so then it is going to absorb that, and that is how it is going to take the nourishment. So this is from a dead and decaying plant. So now this part is actually the bacterial cluster. Okay, so same way parasitic. So now when we mention about a parasitic, so what exactly do they do? Okay, so that means they take a nourishment from the living organisms. Okay, so these bacteria, so they can take the nourishment from the living organism. So let's say there is a human. Okay, so now from a human, what they'll do is, so there is a human, so from human, so they can live inside the intestine of a human. Okay, so they are living inside the intestine of a human, or let's say they are living onto the plant surface. So this can also be done. So on a surface of a plant they are living, and they are taking a nourishment again. So that is again by enzymatic action itself. So basically the bacteria takes the nourishment. Okay, so that is from the living organism. So this is for a nourishment. So this is a parasitic. All right, so moving on to next one. So you can see that the saprotrophic is mentioned here. Okay, so saprotrophic also you can write, or you know, we can also write it as a saprophytic. So this one can be saprotrophic as well. So don't get confused. So both are one and the same. All right, so next, the bacteria secrete powerful enzymes from their cells into the surrounding food containing material. Enzymes, the food material, so they'll make it soluble. So that is absorbable solution is made, then it is taken into the bacterial cell. Okay, so which bacteria looks like comma in shape? Anybody has any idea on this one? So which bacteria exactly looks like a comma in shape? No idea. So I was just mentioning about that. So if a coccus is there, okay, so coccus bacteria is actually spherical one. So let me just write it here. All right, so comma in shape it is R. So now coccus is spherical, so spirillum is spiral will be there, bacillus is rod shaped, and now this one is a comma shaped bacteria. Okay, so it is the vibrio which looks in comma shape. So when cocci are arranged in two numbers, so what is it called as? So since it is a plural term now, so it is arranged in two numbers, so it is a diplococci. So this is a diplococci. So here this one is just the coccus, and if we are saying, so this one is a streptococcus, that means it is forming a long chain as such. Okay, so long chain formation is occurring. Staphylococcus is basically a cluster formation is occurring. So there is a formation of a cluster which we can see. So this is a staphylococcus. Okay, so next one, respiration. So what exactly happens with respect to the respiration? Just a second. So then I'll discuss about the structure of a bacteria. Just a second. Here it is. All right. Yeah, so now in respiration of a bacteria, okay, so some bacteria respire by absorbing the oxygen, and then so others do not require oxygen. Okay, so let's see this one now. So with respect to respiration that occurs in a bacteria, all right, so in respiration, so there are two types are there. Okay, so aerobic respiration is present and anaerobic respiration is present. Okay, so now there is aerobic respiration, okay, and the other one is anaerobic respiration. So what exactly is the meaning of this one? So aerobic means, so this particular organism, so this respires in presence of oxygen. Okay, so this respires in presence of oxygen. Okay, so now this anaerobic, when we mention, so this does not require oxygen for the respiration. So in absence of oxygen, okay, so this will survive in absence of oxygen. So that means if oxygen is present, so there is a chance that it can die. Okay, so now this is without the oxygen, so this one is with the oxygen. Okay, so this is aerobic respiration, and then there is anaerobic respiration. So these are the two types. So now if we are talking about humans, okay, so what exactly happens in humans? So there is human body is there, so we are basically we respire in presence of oxygen. Okay, but whenever you are running, whenever you are performing activities like hyper activities, so let's say you are not taking a sufficient amount of breath. Okay, so in that case you start running, you keep running, so a lot of running is occurring there. So basically sufficient air that you are not taking in. So under those circumstances, what exactly happens is, so since you are not taking enough amount of oxygen, so your muscle cells, so they are not getting enough amount of oxygen there. So under those conditions, muscles of humans, okay, so this is with respect to muscles of humans, so there is an anaerobic respiration which can occur. Okay, so that is anaerobic respiration. So whenever anaerobic respiration occurs in case of muscles of human, because they are continuously running and there is no oxygen supply. Okay, so as the oxygen supply is not done, so it will lead to formation of a lactic acid, and this lactic acid make the human get tired, and there is a ache. So there is a body ache which can start because insufficient supply of oxygen. So now if we are talking about the bacteria, Okay, so what exactly happens in bacteria is, so since they do not, some of the organisms anyway, they require oxygen for their respiration. So if oxygen is provided to a bacteria who are anaerobic, so there is a chance that they can die also. So that means they cannot survive the presence of oxygen. So that means they do not require oxygen at all. So they need to be deep seated and where, like, somewhere where the oxygen availability is less. Okay, so this is with respect to respiration. Now if we have to see the structure, so basically reproduction. So first let me discuss about the structure of a bacteria. So I can draw it here itself. Yeah, I'll draw it here. Okay, so now the structure of a bacteria, if we have to see, so let me just draw this one. So there is a outer covering. Okay, so this one, let's say there is a outer covering for a bacteria. Okay, so now this is a bacteria. Okay, so this one is the outermost covering, which is actually a capsule is present. Okay, so next to capsule we can find a cell wall. Okay, so there is a cell wall present over here next to this structure. So this cell wall is basically made up of a peptidoglycan. Anyway, they have not given in your textbook about the peptidoglycan, but most of the bacterial cell wall which is so that will be made up of a peptidoglycan. So it is very, it is resistant to most of the conditions as well. So that means it is stronger. Okay, so next one here is a peptidoglycan cell wall. So let me just label this one as well. So this one is capsule. Okay, so then there is a cell wall. Then you can find at places, so there is, a structure which is called as the mesosome. So there is a plasma membrane. So this plasma membrane is folding and it is forming a structure as such. Okay, so there are you can also find certain structures as such. So here again you can find a structure as such. Then this one is now the structure of a bacteria, that is mainly the cell membrane or a plasma membrane. Okay, so this is now a plasma membrane of a bacteria which is actually folding. So it is having a inner foldings as such. Okay, so this structure is called as a cell membrane. Okay, so let me just label this one. So cell membrane, which can also be called as a plasma membrane. Okay, so there is a plasma membrane as well. Okay, so some bacteria have a flagella. Okay, so that we call as a trichous bacteria. If a flagella is not there, so it can be called as a trichous. Okay, or a trichous also can be called. So let me just draw one flagella for this bacteria because it is missing it. So now here let me just draw one flagella. Okay, so now this structure what you find, so this is actually the flagella structure. So let me just make changes with this. Okay, alright, so this structure what you find, so this is exactly the flagella structure. Okay, so this one we will label. So there is a flagella. So there can be many flagellas can be present in a bacteria. Okay, so only one flagella can be there, on both the sides you can draw a flagella, or everywhere you can draw a flagella also. So this one is a flagella which is there mainly for the movement. Okay, or a locomotion we will call. So this one will occur with the help of a flagella in a bacteria. Okay, so now here this folding what you see. Okay, so this folding is actually called as a mesosome. So this is mesosome. Okay, I'll just label this one here. So this is mesosome, which is equivalent to the mitochondria which is there in case of a eukaryotic cell. Okay, so mesosome is there for a respiration, and this is same as that. So it is equivalent to the mitochondria which we find in case of what we call that is eukaryotic cell. So then there can can be granules, so there can be smaller granules we can find here and there. So then these granules are basically glycogen granules, starch granules, so food granules we will mention them. Okay, so these are food granules we will call them. Okay, so or the granules which store the food. Okay, so that can be called. Then let's draw a genetic material over here. Okay, so here a genetic material is present which is randomly coined. So this one is a genetic material, a DNA. Okay, so this one is actually the DNA which is present. So this DNA is responsible for what? So this is responsible for the carrying the information, that is genetic material is it will represent. So generation to generation the type of a bacterial structure will be maintained with the help of a DNA itself. So now this DNA is present in a space or an area called as a nucleoid. So we cannot call this particular space, okay, so this area or a space which is present, so that is called as a nucleoid. So here the nucleus is not present because this is a prokaryotic organism. Okay, so this one is a prokaryotic organism. So that means there is no well defined nucleus. So since there is no well defined nucleus, nuclear membrane is absent. Okay, so in this nuclear membrane is absent, so that is why it does not have a well defined nucleus. So this is now a nuclear membrane is absent, so there is no well defined nucleus in case of a bacteria. Okay, so this is a bacteria now. So we have just drawn a bacteria which is actually a prokaryotic organism. So nuclear membrane is absent in them, so that means there is no well defined nucleus. So we will also just mention over here a cytoplasm is present. So completely it will be of cytoplasm will be there. Okay, so with that you can also find some food vacuoles, food granules we can mention. So vacuole can be present, so we can just draw a vacuole, or many ribosomes will be there. So throughout the cytoplasm you can find many ribosomes here. Okay, so these ribosomes are actually responsible for the protein synthesis. So we will label this as well now. Okay, so I'll just, where shall I write this one? So here I'll write. Okay, so this is now a ribosome. Okay, so this ribosome is responsible for the protein synthesis. Okay, so this is responsible for the protein synthesis. So let's have a look at this one now. So now this capsule, what you find? So capsule is in general, so this is a whole structure which is providing a protection. Cell wall is providing a protection, cell membrane which is there, so that is also providing a protection, and also a shape is being provided to this bacteria. Okay, so then there is mesosome where the respiration can occur. So ribosomes are there, cytoplasm is there, nuclear material, that is the DNA is present. So through the DNA all these processes, so RNA synthesis can occur, protein synthesis can occur. So all that process is occurring here itself in the cytoplasmic area. And since there is no nuclear membrane, so this bacteria can be said as a prokaryotic organism because there is no well defined nucleus. Okay, so this is the structure with respect to bacteria. And other than that we can also say that, so since there is ribosome which is present, so this is responsible for the protein synthesis. Flagella is there for the movement or locomotion of this bacteria. So then there is food granule, or we can say a vacuole also. So there can be vacuole also which can be present in certain cases. So smaller vacuoles we can find here and there. Okay, so those are there. So food vacuole we can mention. So other than that, so these are the structures that is present. So now this is with respect to the bacterial structure. Okay, so any doubts in bacteria structure? Okay, so now this is the structure of a bacteria that we discussed. Okay, so then other than that, let's have a look at the reproduction type, like how exactly reproduction that occurs. Now reproduction in bacteria is by asexual means. That means only one parent is involved, and that can occur by a fission or a cell division. Okay, so now the circular DNA will duplicate. So there is a duplication of the circular DNA. So you can see this is a circular DNA. So here I have drawn a random DNA. Okay, so but this can be circular also, so this can be present as it is. So one more thing that I need to draw here, so certain bacteria, so they'll have a plasmid also. So let me just mention this one over here, just a second. So certain bacteria can have a plasmid as well. So there can be plasmid. So here I'll write this one. So there can be plasmid which can be present in a bacteria. So this all can be there. Okay, so now here with respect to the bacteria, so these cell consists at the middle separating the two cells. So that means a furrow formation will occur. So now the two daughter cells are produced and they may separate from each other as an independent cell. So let me just draw this and explain. So let's say this is a bacterial cell. Okay, so this is reproduction in bacteria. Okay, so this is with respect to how exactly the reproduction in bacteria occurs. So this is actually a sexual reproduction. Okay, so that means the two parents are not involved, only one parent is involved in here. Okay, so that is a parent bacteria. So that is only one bacteria which is there. So let's have a look at this. So now this is a bacteria. I'm not drawing all the capsule and other things. Okay, so this is bacteria having its circular DNA as such. Okay, so this is a whole bacteria. Okay, so this is a bacteria, and this one what you see, so this is the DNA or the genetic material. So now what will happen, the next step is elongation of the bacteria. So this bacteria is going to elongate, so that means it will grow bigger. Okay, so same bacteria, only one bacteria is there, so elongation of a bacteria we can find. So this bacteria which is elongated, so this is elongation of bacteria. So as the elongation occurs, so this will also duplicate its cellular content, or basically a DNA content and the cytoplasmic content. Okay, so now what will happen, so there will be furrow formation which can occur. So see, this bacteria will start, now it will start forming a furrow. Okay, so there is a furrow formation over here, so you can see a furrow formation as such. So that means so two of the nuclear material is divided here between these two, because a furrow has divided it. So furrow formation we can see here. So by forming a furrow, it is going to separate, so they can remain attached, or basically they can completely separate also. So next step is, so two daughter cells are produced here. So these two daughter cells are basically, this is one bacteria, this is another bacteria which is completely formed, and they are having their own genetic material. Okay, so now these are the daughter cells which are produced, or daughter cells of a bacteria. So this is, the process is called as a binary fission. Okay, so this process is actually binary fission. So one cell is getting divided into two cells here. So now we can say that the bacteria is immortal. Okay, because the parent cell itself is dividing, daughter cells are formed, again these daughter cells will divide, so further daughter cell formation will occur. So there is no death for a bacteria unless and until it is treated with the antibiotic, or otherwise, so they are they go on dividing, so lots of bacteria formation can occur. Okay, so example we can take, E. coli is there. Then there is, this thing which is given in your textbook itself, with respect to bacteria. So Vibrio cholerae. Okay, so there is a Bacillus streptococci, staphylococci. Okay, so all those could be the example for a bacteria. So this is about asexual reproduction which we see. So there is one more type which is given in your textbook. So that is highly primitive type of a sexual reproduction which can be found in case of a bacteria. So what exactly is sexual reproduction occurring over here in case of a bacteria is that, so very few bacteria is extremely simple. So now this is not a true reproduction because, so there are no multiple copies formed. Okay, so there are no multiple copies of a bacteria formed here. Okay, so there is no multiple copy. So only the genetic material exchange, or we can say only the DNA exchange is occurring. Okay, so in this case multiple copies are not produced. So that means it is not a true type of a reproduction, but the genetic material is being exchanged. Okay, so that is why it is mentioned here as a sexual reproduction, but there are no multiple copies. Okay, so only genetic material exchange is occurring here. So with respect to that, so in this method the two bacteria of different strains, so let's say there are two bacteria. Okay, so now this is one bacteria. All right, so then there is another bacteria we will have a look at. So this is another bacteria which is there. Okay, so this is now a bacteria. All right, and this one is another bacteria which is present. So these two bacteria, so they are, in this method, so they come together. So they are of the same species itself, but a slight difference will be there. So they are coming together. So now the plasmid of the donor. So let's say this one is a donor. Okay, and this is a recipient. Okay, so this one is a recipient. All right, so that is donor of plasmid. Okay, and this one is recipient of plasmid. So that means a plasmid is being received by this one. Okay, so now in this case the plasmid of the donor may be transferred into the recipient through a hollow tube like extension. So there is a tube like extension which will be formed here. Okay, so now this is a tube like extension which is formed here, and there is a plasmid which is present. So this one is now a plasmid which we can see in the bacteria. So this is a hollow tube like structure formation. Okay, so here this structure, so this will multiply and this plasmid is gonna enter this structure. Okay, so now this is a plasmid which is there. Okay, so this structure is a plasmid. So this will multiply and now it is getting in here. So after the transfer is done, so here the plasmid, so this also will receive a bacteria. So here this will earlier this bacteria will have a plasmid and this does not have a plasmid. So now as the multiplication occurs here, so through the conjugation process. Okay, so one second. So through the conjugation process, what will happen? So bridge formation will occur. So that bridge or a hollow tube like extension. Okay, so this is called as a pili. Okay, so this can be called as a pili also, or sex pili also it can be called. So basically a tube like formation will occur. So hollow tube like formation or extension can occur. So with that transfer of a plasmid is done here. So this is actually the transfer of a genetic material is being transferred to the other bacteria which is not having a genetic material. Okay, so this we call as a conjugation, and this is a type of a reproduction itself in case of a bacteria. Okay, so this is asexual reproduction, and this one is called in general as a sexual reproduction, but here this is actually called as a conjugation. Okay, so this one is a conjugation. So no multiple copies, only the genetic exchanges occurring here. So aerobic bacteria respire in presence of carbon dioxide, oxygen, nitrogen, and none of the above. So since they are asking, yes, anybody, any idea on this one? Alright, so here aerobic bacteria. So since this is with respect to the oxygen, so we can say that the oxygen is being taken there. Okay, so that means it is called as a aerobic. So if it is anaerobic, then there is no requirement of oxygen here. So parasitic bacteria so derive the nutrition from dead organism, rotting food, living organism, decaying food. So parasitic meaning is they take the nourishment from the living organism. So this one and this one, so these three, what are they? So they are actually saprotrophic. Okay, so saprotrophic, or can also be called as a saprophytic. So this can be or. So saprophytic also we can mention. So these are the bacteria which take the nourishment from the dead and decaying organism. The parasitic, when we mention, so they take the nourishment from the living organisms. Okay, so before I end this session, okay, so let me just say about certain features of Unacademy. Any doubts you have? I hope no doubt. All right. So there is a champions batch which is all subject batch. Okay. So batch start date is 2nd of March itself. So we have already started the batch. So here recordings will be available. So you can watch the recordings of the sessions that are done. Okay. So maths, physics, chemistry and biology will be covered. So subscribe for ICSE class 9 and get ICSE class 10 to 12 subscription absolutely free. Okay, so if you are going for 12 months of subscription, and basically you are getting all this subscription absolutely free. Okay, so there is a bucks bounty, so opportunity for all learners to report any inappropriate content in the video. So you can be the first one to report a particular issue to claim your prize. So report any inappropriate content using the form in the description. Okay, so how you can watch my special classes? So all you need to do is download the Unacademy learner app. Okay, so then open the app, click on get started. So once you do that, enter your mobile number and OTP. So then sign up using your email ID. Okay, so once that is done, so you will find two sections. So there is a competitive exam section and then class 6 to 12. So you can select this one, that is class 6 to 12. Then you can find ICSE category. Okay, so there will be ICSE category you can select. So you can select ICSE class 9. So you can select your class, then select your preferred language. So you need to select your preferred language. So go to the description of this video, click on the special class link. Okay, so then click on notify me and you will get notified 10 minutes before the class begins. So use my code. So you can use my code Vani YT. Okay, so this is my code. So with this referral code, you can unlock many of the free products that are there on Unacademy. Also with the referral code, you can also get 10% discount on the subscription. Okay, so this is my referral code for the 10% discount. Okay, so other than that, so this is already done. Alright, so download the Unacademy app now. So try all of these features for free, and this is my referral code. Okay, so thank you everyone. I hope there is no doubt. Alright, so you can also click on bell icon, subscribe to our channel, then like and share the video. Okay, so download the Unacademy learner app and start using the free classes, or start taking the free classes. Or if you are going for plus subscription, so you can also use the code Vani YT to get 10% discount on the subscription. So you can also use this code. Okay, so see you all in the next section. Bye bye, bye bye everyone, bye bye everyone, take care. Just a second.